I'm Gemma, and this is my husband Paul, and we're both foster carers. I think initially we were a little bit anxious ourselves about going to panel. It sounded quite scary, but it wasn't at all. It was just a really friendly chit chat with a group of people around a table. It was more of a celebration, really, of us being there and of us, wanting to become foster carers. The County Council offer a fair rate of pay, so we get paid dependent on our level of experience. So after you've done it for a while, then your level of pay will go up based on your experience and level of training that you've done. We've also got a network hub, which is a foster carer support group, and it's just an informal get-together. We feel so valued as a foster carer for Nottinghamshire County Council. Everyone's so caring and wants what's best for you as a family. The matching process is really careful, so they listen to our needs and, they would never think of placing a child that wouldn't fit in our environment. As a foster family, we try and just make it everyday, normal life, try and bring some stability and love to that child that's staying with us and give them experiences that perhaps they've not experienced before. We love going out on day trips together, and for example, today we've come pony trekking. Nottinghamshire's a great place to foster because we've got so much on our doorstep. There's so much that we can do. I feel really lucky that we're able to foster here. I'm Gemma, and this is my husband Paul, and we're both foster carers. I think initially we were a little bit anxious ourselves about going to panel. It sounded quite scary, but it wasn't at all. It was just a really friendly chit chat with a group of people around a table. It was more of a celebration, really, of us being there and of us, wanting to become foster carers. The County Council offer a fair rate of pay, so we get paid dependent on our level of experience. So after you've done it for a while, then your level of pay will go up based on your experience and level of training that you've done. We've also got a network hub, which is a foster carer support group, and it's just an informal get-together. We feel so valued as a foster carer for Nottinghamshire County Council. Everyone's so caring and wants what's best for you as a family. The matching process is really careful, so they listen to our needs and, they would never think of placing a child that wouldn't fit in our environment. As a foster family, we try and just make it everyday, normal life, try and bring some stability and love to that child that's staying with us and give them experiences that perhaps they've not experienced before. We love going out on day trips together, and for example, today we've come pony trekking. Nottinghamshire's a great place to foster because we've got so much on our doorstep. There's so much that we can do. I feel really lucky that we're able to foster here. I'm Gemma, and this is my husband Paul, and we're both foster carers. I think initially we were a little bit anxious ourselves about going to panel. It sounded quite scary, but it wasn't at all. It was just a really friendly chit chat with a group of people around a table. It was more of a celebration, really, of us being there and of us, wanting to become foster carers. The County Council offer a fair rate of pay, so we get paid dependent on our level of experience. So after you've done it for a while, then your level of pay will go up based on your experience and level of training that you've done. We've also got a network hub, which is a foster carer support group, and it's just an informal get-together. We feel so valued as a foster carer for Nottinghamshire County Council. Everyone's so caring and wants what's best for you as a family. The matching process is really careful, so they listen to our needs, and they would never think of placing a child that wouldn't fit in our environment. As a foster family, we try and just make it everyday normal life, try and bring some stability and love to that child that's staying with us, and give them experiences that perhaps they've not experienced before. We love going out on day trips together, and for example today we've come pony trekking. Nottinghamshire's a great place to foster because we've got so much on our doorstep. There's so much that we can do. I feel really lucky that we're able to foster here.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Right. We've started, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Police and Crime Panel. My name is Keith Ford, and I'm one of the support officers to the Nottinghamshire Police and Crime Panel. Can I welcome everybody to today's meeting, which will be the first time that the meeting's been held virtually and streamed live to the internet in line with the requirements of the Coronavirus Act 2020. Please do bear with us if we're running into any technical difficulties today, which I think we've already had just getting to this point. The meeting will be adjourned temporarily if the live stream is broken at any point. Because this is the annual meeting of the panel, the first item of business is the election of chair. Before we deal with that, I would just like to clarify the participants in the meeting today. The panel members participating today are the 4 independent co-opted members. So that is Leslie Dolby, Christine Goldstraw, OBE, Suma Harding, and Bob Vaughan Newton. We also have Councillor Leslie Ayola and Councillor Linda Woodings from Nottingham City Council. We have Councillor Tony Eaton of Bassetlaw District Council. We have Councillor David Ellis of Gedling Borough Council, Councillor Rob Inglis of Rushcliffe Borough Council, Councillor Richard McRae of Broxtowe Borough Council, Councillor Francis Purdue Horan of Nottinghamshire County Council, Councillor Jason Zajodsny of Ashfield District Council, Councillor Stuart Richardson of Mansfield District Council, who is attending as a substitute for the Mayor of Mansfield, Andy Abrahams. Just to say that Councillor Richardson is unable to have the video link today, but he is on the call and he can also input via the audio link. We've received apologies from Councillor Scott Carlton of Newark and Sherwood District Council. As well as the members also in attendance are Paddy Tipping, the Police and Crime Commissioner, Craig Guilford, the Chief Constable, Kevin Dennis, the Chief Executive, and Charlie Radford, the Chief Finance Officer, both of the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner. Can I welcome you all, one and all? Can I just point out that not all the members have the raise your hand facility, it turns out. So in terms of indicating when they wish to speak, the idea is that people will continue to mute their microphones until they're at a point when they want to join in the debate. So moving on to the first item proper on the agenda, which is election of chairman. Can I ask, are there any nominations, please, for the position of Chair of the Police and Crime Panel for the 2020-21 municipal year? Thank you, Paul.
Bob Vaughan-Newton, I wish to nominate Christine Goldstraw, OBE.
Thank you very much. And is that seconded, please? Thank you, Councillor Woodings. So that has been nominated by Bob Vaughan-Newton and seconded by Councillor Woodings. Can I just say if there are any other nominations, please? There are no other nominations and therefore we will go to the vote. And therefore can the nomination of Christine Goldstraw, OBE, be agreed as the chair of the panel for 2020-21? Please do all speak if you want to vote in support of that recommendation.
Well, I'm Councillor Richard McRae and I vote in support of that.
And I can say Suma, I can say Linda, Leslie, and any other members who have not indicated, can you please just speak, just to indicate that you're in support of the recommendation?
Yeah, I'm in support of that.
That's great.
Councillor Richardson.
That's great. Can I just check whether there are any votes against the nomination, please? And are there any abstentions, please? In which case that is agreed. Can I please welcome Christine to take the chair for the rest of the meeting, please?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to serve you as a chair for another term of office. I greatly appreciate that. This is the first for all of us. You never stop learning, and learning how to do these video meetings is quite a challenge for all of us, I think. So if we falter at any time, do bear with us. But thank you very much indeed. It's my great pleasure now to ask for and nominate my vice chairman, and I'm pleased that Councillor David Ellis is willing to stand as vice chair. Do I have anyone who's prepared to second that proposal, please? I've got Councillor Woodings and Mr. Bob Vaughan-Newton. Are there any objections to the vote? Everyone in favour then?
Could I just check, sorry, Chair, could I just check that there are no other nominations either?
Oh, thank you, sorry.
Just a formality, sorry. Oh, that's fine, thank you.
And I assume, I can't see Councillor Ellis, but I'm assuming he's there and happy to take on the role.
Yeah, I am, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, thank you. In that case then, could we move then please to the next part of the agenda? You've all hopefully received copies of the minutes of the last meeting held on February the 6th, which seems an awfully long time ago now, doesn't it? The world was quite a different place. Can I take, first of all, any corrections or any amendments? Give people a chance to come in if there isn't. In that case, can I move the motion to record and accept these minutes as a true record?
It's Councillor Richard McRae. I need to abstain on that one because I wasn't at the last meeting because it was just after my operation.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor. Did you manage to get that note, Keith? Yes, thank you. Then moving on the agenda, you have the notes of what was our first teleconference held on the 30th of March. As you'll see, this was a short meeting just between the need to be there, few people on the 30th of March. It was a telephone conference. There are notes really just for your information. Many of you will recall that the 30th of March had been the date that we'd planned a really significant police and crime panel meeting where we were going to invite an awful lot of people to the meeting to talk about domestic violence. It appears later in the agenda, but we kept the momentum going by just having the short meeting. Anyone wish to make any comments on the notes of the meeting?
Yeah, Councillor Richard McRae.
Councillor McRae, I can just about see you. You're sort of in the dark.
Usual place for me. Right. Yeah, no, I just wanted to say thank you because I've read them several times and it's very interesting. Unfortunately, I wasn't part of that. Again, that was my fault. But no, I've enjoyed it. I just wanted to ask if it's okay with the committee, because tomorrow night we've got community safety at Broxton Borough Council, and we've got a new item on the agenda where I give an update from the police and crime panel. You know, that's what I'm there for. And I just wondered if it's okay if I pick through little bits of this to read out things that I find that are relevant for Broxton Borough Council. I just wanted to check with you guys if that was okay before I did a bit of cut and pasting for tomorrow night.
It's certainly fine by.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Councillor McRae, just to say that the notes are public, basically.
Yeah.
They form part of this public agenda pack, so that you're fine to share them far and wide.
Yeah, I always like to ask first.
That's wise.
Thank you.
Could I come in, please?
Yes, Councillor Woodings, thank you.
Thank you. It's a shame that we obviously had to cancel our main Police and Crime Commissioner scrutiny panel because we were going to have a yearly update on the issue of domestic violence. And I noticed that was one of the topics of interest from the minutes. And I just want to ask that when we go through the Police and Crime Commissioner's performance reports, that we have a bit of an update about some of the measures that are being taken because of the increase in domestic violence that have happened during the lockdown period. I note, obviously, the performance report is something we're going to come on to, but I'm pleased that it was part of your discussion on that date, and would just like some more information from the Commissioner when we get to that point in the agenda, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Woodings. Can I just ask the Commissioner if he heard everything there?
Yeah, I heard everything very clearly, Christine. I will comment on domestic violence in my update report. Linda's quite right, it's been a focus for us, but you'll remember that we've produced a big report on domestic violence. That's been finalised at the moment, and we will bring it together with appropriate partners to the September meeting.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, and we'll pick that up later as we go through the agenda then. We come to item 5, apologies for absence. I think I heard Mr. Ford mention a name earlier.
Yes, well, we've received apologies, Chair, from Mayor Abrahams, which is why Councillor Richardson is attending via the audio link, and we've also had apologies from Councillor Scott Carlton, who's involved in work relating to the response to COVID-19, so that's why he can't be here today.
Thank you very much. That takes us then to declarations of interest by members of officers. I'll ask first of all about item A. Do any members present have any disclosable pecuniary interests to declare? I'll take silence as no. And item B, do any members present have any private interests, pecuniary or non-pecuniary, to declare? Thank you very much. If we can move then to item 7, and I'll hand over to Mr. Ford to take us through the review of balanced memberships and the appointment objective.
Thank you, Chair. This report is in response to the requirement for the panel to review its membership each year to ensure it is as politically balanced as it can be and is also representative of the local communities it serves. The report underlines that no changes are required this year. It has been a year of no elections, although the report does underline that the process for reappointing and recruiting independent co-opted members will be starting soon, and the plan is to bring an initial report on that to the panel meeting in September. I'd be happy to answer any questions or if members have any points to raise in relation to the report.
Any questions for this?
Yes, if I could just say,
Councillor Woodings.
the City Council still feels that it's underrepresented on the Police and Crime Commissioners panel. However, we are where we are, and it appears we need consensus in order to change the balance of the committee, and therefore I'll be abstaining on this.
Thank you, Councillor Woodings. Any other comments, please? We've noticed, we've taken note of your abstention. Can I ask if there are any more abstentions?
Is that Councillor Eula as well?
Thank you, Councillor Eula. In that case, can we accept the paper as is then and move to item 8, the work programme? And I'll hand over to Keith Ford again to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. This is the usual updated work programme report. Clearly, the scheduling of the items at Appendix A is open to change during this period. We've referred already to the domestic violence item, which at this stage has been rescheduled to the September meeting. Obviously, if it's not possible to hold that meeting in person in September, then we'd probably be looking to rearrange that further. Members will note that the planned The finalised schedule of panel meeting dates is also included at paragraph 18 of the report. There are a few other specific issues within the cover report which I'd just like to draw members' attention to. We are still planning to produce an annual report for the panel, so it had been previously agreed that the panel would produce an annual report for last year's work. The work is stalled to some degree, obviously due to other more pressing commitments at this time, but I'd still like to think that we'll be able to bring a draft annual report to the meeting in September for members to agree, and then we can look at how we'll go about sharing that with the public. Also within the cover report, it refers to the Regional Police and Crime Panel Network. Members are asked to agree the continued subscription to the regional network, which is organised by Frontline Consulting. This is an annual subscription. It has been £500 in the past. This year it's at a reduced cost of £400, albeit that's with the removal of the free additional place at the National Conference, which Frontline also organise with great success each year. On that subject, the National Conference is still scheduled for November 2020, although the dates may obviously be subject to change, and I will keep members posted as soon as there is any change in that. The conference, as you'll see, as in previous years, takes place on the same day as the annual general meeting of the new National Association of Police, Fire and Crime Panels. Suma Harding is the panel's agreed representative on that body, and I understand that Suma would like to feed back to the meeting on recent virtual meetings which has been involved with the association. Are you okay to feed back now, Suma?
Good afternoon. I'd just like to report what has been happening at the National Association of Police and Crime Panel and Fire Panels. We produced a survey which we have sent out to all 42 panels. 31 panels responded, and at this point in time we're collating the information, and I'll be able to present some of the information to you either by email or also at the meeting on the 7th of September. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suma, and thank you, Keith. Do any members have any queries or points to raise, please? In that case, can I recommend that the 3 items are agreed or can be agreed? Are there any abstentions at all? Can I move those motions then as accepted, please? That takes us to item 9 on the agenda. And prior to handing over to the Commissioner, I would like to just introduce this item and welcome the Commissioner and his team to our meeting today.
So, Christine, thank you. As you said earlier on, it's a long time since we met together to decide the budget on the 6th of February, and a lot's happened since then. Most of it has been unpredictable. What I thought I would do is just go through some headline messages and then spend some time, because I know panel members want to talk about this, about COVID-19 and the consequences for Nottinghamshire Police. COVID has really been an operational matter, and the Chief Constable is online with us and may want to comment himself. But on the headlines, we were predicting that by the 31st of March, we would see, for the first time in many years, a decrease in crime, overall crime in Nottinghamshire, and that was in fact the case. Crime dropped across the county slightly by just around 1%. In addition, we've been working hard, as you know, to get police numbers up. And at the 31st of March, police numbers stood at 2,123. And the projection in the current year is to go further and get them up to 2,273, an extra 150. You'll have seen from the March telephone discussion that the way we're going to do that is to use the performance bonus that the Home Office is making available for forces who meet their uplift target, their share of the 20,000. We're going to spend that in the current year. So we met our target in the last financial year. We were one of the few forces who reached our target a year early of 107 extra officers, and we will recruit as soon as we get the final figures from the government, which are promised before the summer, recruit an extra 150 officers. And all parts of the county will benefit from that. The panel's taken a great deal of interest in Operation Reacher, and every neighbourhood inspector from the autumn will have a Reacher team in September or October. And that's a big and important step forward in terms of positive, active neighbourhood policing, and I'm really pleased we've been able to do that, and I'm delighted that the publicity we've had of this both locally and nationally. Let me just say a word or two about the budget. When we last met, we were predicting an overspend in the region of something slightly over £340,000. Sharp-eyed members of the panel, and I know you're all sharp-eyed members of the panel, will see that the overspend is in fact 92,000. So the degree of overspending has come down. The primary reason for that is that towards the end of March, it became apparent that because of COVID, some of our suppliers weren't able to supply on time. But a £92,000 overspend on a budget of £206 million is pretty much spot on. So let me turn to COVID, and it's caused a great deal of worry, great deal of concern, and a great deal of focus. The important thing to recognise is that nationally and here in Nottinghamshire, overall crime has gone down. The figure nationally is calculated at 25%. Here in Nottinghamshire, it's slightly higher than that, at around 30%. Our real concern early doors was that officers and staff would go off sick, and indeed some have. Some have had the virus, and most of them are now back at work, and that gives a lot of reassurance. The absentee rate, the sickness rate today is 8.3%, which is broadly double our normal rate. So COVID, in effect, has led to a 4% vacancy rate, and that's pretty standard across the country. Most of those aren't ill. Most of them are self-isolating for a variety of reasons, or to protect vulnerable members of their family. And many of them are able now to work at home. One of the things that we've learnt from this episode is the importance of remote and agile working. And I don't think we will ever go back to where we were. Officers, we've been very lucky here in Nottinghamshire. Early doors, we had a driving facility at the Boots site in Beeston. And again, as of today, 496 officers and staff have been tested there. One of the big issues has been nationally around PPE. And I'm pleased to say to the panel that our stocks aren't lavish, but they're adequate. One of the things that the force has done is identify local suppliers as well as drawing down from the national supply line. We're very lucky here in Nottinghamshire. The regional base for PPE is here in Nottingham. So we're in a good and strong position. The major way of controlling the virus has been, as panel members know, through social distancing. And a great deal of effort is gone into that. But of course, because of the nature of the job, there are sometimes closer encounters, and everyone has access to the PPE that's necessary. Another national item has been around fixed penalty notices. As of today, about 18,000 fixed penalty notices have been issued. Again, here in Nottinghamshire, the number is a lot smaller at 153. And Chief Constable may want to comment on this himself, but in the main, people have acted responsibly and respectfully, and we've not had some of the problems that have been elsewhere. There have been problems, but they have been well handled. And I'm very pleased to see that looking at the number of fixed penalty notices, we're in the bottom quartile here in Nottinghamshire. Leicestershire and Derbyshire, neighbouring counties, similar sized forces have got 50% more, broadly 50% more notices issued than around here. I want to talk directly to the panel because Linda has asked me to around domestic violence, and there have been some confusing messages around this. The panel will have noticed that nationally, the National Helpline has been talking about calls to the helpline increasing by 100%. A good deal of scrutiny has gone into that, and what is clear is that the number of calls to the National Helpline have indeed gone up, but the number of calls for advice from professionals rather than victims has increased, and that has slightly skewed the figures. Here in Nottinghamshire, the local helpline numbers have gone up slightly, but not significantly. One of the things that we did early on was to enable Juno Women's Aid, who operate the helpline, to move to the cloud. At one time, they were using mobiles and traditional technology and were missing a number of calls. In the very early days of the lockdown, we provided emergency funding of 18,000 and the helpline is now operating effectively and well. So calls to the helpline nationally and locally have gone up. The interesting thing is that at the beginning of the crisis, calls for assistance to the police went down. and over the period of the past 8 or 9 weeks, those referrals are beginning to go up. Nationally, domestic violence requests to the police have gone up, not in every force, but across the piece by about 3%. Here in Nottinghamshire, we have still not caught up with what traditionally we would have had before the lockdown. Although as weeks have gone down, the numbers are beginning to rise again. And we anticipate at the end of the lockdown that numbers will go up again significantly. Plans are in hand to talk about that. And as you said, Christine, the panel will have a good opportunity to talk about domestic violence, not just with me, but with partners, because this is a very much a partnership approach in September. The final point I wanted to make was around the court system. Courts are still operating, but they're operating in a very reduced way. And we anticipate at the end of this week, there will be 40,000 outstanding cases for the courts. And working on the pattern in the past, the numbers that have gone forward in the past, it will take 4 to 5 years to deal with that. That clearly isn't acceptable. And there's a great deal of discussion with the court service, with judges, with the Home Office and with the Ministry of Justice and the CPS to try and find a way forward on that. And there's no point us having meetings if we're not straight with each other. I think there is a disparity between some of the messages that have come down nationally and some things that are happening on a more local level. It's a real area of concern, a real area of vulnerability going forward, and we're involved in discussions to try and resolve that. So, Christine, if you're happy, I'll stop at that point. More than happy to answer any questions. As I say, COVID has been well handled by the police and by partners. I want to say thank you to everybody. The Local Resilience Forum, which the Chief Constable chairs, has operated well. We've learnt an awful lot about partnership working that we need to continue into the future. And I'm involved in a piece of work nationally looking at lessons to be learned from the COVID incident, because it's clear to me that it will change the way that we police into the future. So I'll take any questions now. As I say, most of the work's been done by the force. The Chief Constable's very willing and primed to answer any questions that you put to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Your report today contains a number of appendices on various topics, and including things around performance, finance, revenue, and your forward plan. So if members are content, what perhaps we could do at the moment is just invite the Chief Constable to make his comments about COVID, and then perhaps come back to you, Commissioner, for questions about the rest of the report that I'm sure members would want to have.
Thanks,
so,
Christine. I will take the floor. Paddy's covered most of it. I think first and foremost, we've done a huge amount of testing of the workforce, which has gone down really well, and that's had a good impact on morale. The ticket side of things, we are bottom quartile, and that's quite deliberate on my strategy. And I think it's important to just work with people. So the education, the explaining is first and foremost, and enforcement comes right at the last of the options. And I think we've done well, and the front end have done very well in making sure that that message is understood and that we retain that policing by consent thread, which is so important. The abstractions actually are relatively low because we invested in some IT last year, and I'm speaking to you off my laptop and looking at a big screen. But essentially, we're able now to send work to home. So for those that have had to self-isolate, officers and staff, we're still able to get work done, which really does link into the we need to do things differently in the future conversation. LRF is a really strong partnership. The city and the county have played extremely vital roles in that. And I think it would be fair to say that some of the earlier PPE challenges were overcome by people working together. And I know that we had a mature approach to our supply line, let's say, and we were sharing some of the things between us quite admirably. The future challenges around COVID, I think, will be just to understand the nuances of the change. And in particular, should there be a local outbreak somewhere, the approach to the LRF and public health around policing that, both from a health perspective and also from a police perspective. But we're developing plans and some working arrangements to do that so that there's full oversight, but also that the plans stand up to scrutiny. In addition to that, the health benefit, realisation of returning to some kind of normality, I think very much has been there in the receiving hospitals. And over a period of time, that peak has started to ease back. And I think that certainly has put us in a good position. We had planned for a Nightingale hospital. We'd scoped for a Nightingale hospital and we didn't need a Nightingale hospital. The next big piece of work is the recovery cell. So under the LRF, the recovery cell is important in looking forward, and in particular, things like schools, things like infrastructure, things like when the universities come back, just to make sure we can do everything within our gift to stimulate the economy and also to keep people safe and get that balance right. So that's what the LRF have got an active subgroup working towards. And city and county are absolutely plumbed into that, as are the districts.
Chief Constable, could I just interrupt you for 1 second and just ask if you could explain, because obviously not everyone who might be listening to this video will know what LRF is.
It's the Local Resilience Forum, which is a statutory body of all the partners and also volunteer organisations, and that's for Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. And that has a strategic coordination group and then a number of tactical groups that sit underneath it. So I chair that, and the strategic coordination group is informed by every single partner that works across the public sector plus voluntary bodies as well.
Thank you, Chief Constable.
I was right at the end, actually. And I think one of the questions which would probably come to the fore is, well, how much does all this cost? Well, obviously, with regards to short-term costs at the end of the financial year, we were just in between two. So I think we've saved quite a bit of expenditure on transport because we haven't been travelling to meetings and we're doing this virtually today. That's the same across the police service, and it's definitely the same in Nottinghamshire. And then the additional sort of expenditure has really been around the PPE and also preparing some of the contingencies that we've had to put in place with regards to extra visibility. And we've called it op buy-on, but it's effectively a high-vis patrolling of some of the key places in our towns and our city going forward throughout the crisis. So I'll just pause there for any questions, if I may, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chief Constable. Could I perhaps start the ball rolling? And first of all, just a bit of clarity. I think you said 496 members of your staff from all of your various departments had been tested. Is that correct?
That's right. And out of those, we've had 26 positives.
Right, thank you. I'd missed that bit. That was what I wanted to ask you. Thank you.
And out of those 26 positives, everybody's back at work apart from 2.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Woodings.
Thank you. I'd just like to come back on the issue of domestic violence. First of all, in relation to the lockdown period in COVID-19, obviously, I think one of the concerns that was had was that the reduction in calls initially might be because people who are suffering domestic violence would be in the home environment and not able to actually make a phone call without inflaming a situation. So in response to that, the police promoted the 5-5 facility. So when you dial 999, if you can't speak, you press 5-5 and your call is silently recorded. Can I ask, do we have an indication as to how well that, did the communications on that work, and how well was that actually, how much was that actually taken up by people? I appreciate we've had an expansion of the sanctuary scheme within Nottingham as well, and I also know that Women's Aid were looking at expanding into a live chat facility rather than verbal phone calls and reports as well. And secondly, in Nottingham City Council, I just want to report on the year-on-year stats, because there is an increase in domestic abuse crimes from March 2019 up to March 2020 of 6%, which, as you say, might be to do with people having more increased confidence to come forward. And certainly statistics further down the report show that people have more confidence in reporting things to the police. It doesn't target it down to this cohort of individuals. However, more alarmingly than that, the repeat rate of domestic abuse cases has increased by 1% year on year as well. And I just wondered, obviously, I'd like to know next September what action plan we have in place to actually address that. Secondly, the City Council's had its Respect survey through, and one of the issues that came out of that was an increasing concern about antisocial behaviour and noise-related incidences. And I just wonder if you could tell me what the response has been by the police during the lockdown period to deal with noise-related incidents.
Commissioner, do you want to come in first on the broader picture of the
Christine, I'll start.
Domestic violence.
With the last question first, which is antisocial behaviour. Although calls to the police have gone down, calls to the police about antisocial behaviour have gone up. They've gone up by 100%. And some of those are related to noise incidents, but a lot of it is of people not complying with social distancing. These are guidelines. These aren't powers that the police have, and we've kept a careful watch on the amount of information coming on. Chief Constable and I had a discussion just last week or the week before about how the police and the local councils handle noise. Quite frankly, the situation isn't satisfactory. You know, Linda, because you've taken a big interest in this, that there's a commitment from the City Council to work with us further on this. And I think it's the desire of your officers to try and put something together by the beginning of the next financial year. In terms of calls coming in, the 555 facility hasn't been used hardly at all. Here in Nottingham, again, as you know, Boots, a very good civic player. You can go, women can go into Boots chemists and make disclosures there. But it's clear that because crime has fallen, the police have been in a position to call proactively vulnerable people, particularly people high risk and repeats. There's been a bigger focus on perpetrators, and all those issues are picked up in the report that's now almost complete and will come to the panel in September. And I think the important thing to recognise is that the police are one part of the jigsaw, and part of it is working with partners. And again, Linda, you'll know, because it's your responsibility. There's been a lot of discussion over recent weeks, perhaps not an awful lot of progress about improving refuge provision during the lockdown period. Both the city and the county council have got plans. Money has been found from various sources, but the facilities as yet aren't up and running as we're moving into the recovery stage, and we will need them in the recovery stage. So I'm looking forward to sharing our report with you in September. You can have it before. Some of your officers have been involved in helping write it, but we're in a strong position in Nottinghamshire. We're not complacent. I know we've got to do more, and we're going to bring forward proposals to enable us to do that.
Thank you. Chief Constable, did you want to make any comments about the operational aspects?
I think they've all been addressed.
Thank you. Any other comments from members at all?
Chair.
Councillor Aoli, thank you. Can you hear me, Councillor? Yeah.
Yes, sorry, I just unmuted myself. Thank you, Paddy and Craig, for the update. There's only one point what I wanted to raise. It was just about, we know that obviously through news reports that is BAME communities are disproportionately affected in the number of deaths, etc. But I just wanted to find out obviously what is the force doing, and obviously looking at any risk assessments or equality impact assessments that the force are doing to one, protect staff, but also its response to community issues, as in number of stop and searches, or fixed penalty notice when it comes to when it comes to fines regarding this over this COVID period. So it just wanted to check on how we're handling that one within the force and its community response.
So Leslie, if you're happy, I'll start on that and then hand over to Craig about the welfare issues around black officers. In terms of fixed penalty notices, I've been having a close look at this. The problem here in Nottinghamshire is that we've only issued 153 fixed penalty notices. So it's a small sample and the sample isn't clean. There are a lot of unknowns in it. But setting what we know here in Nottinghamshire against the national position, it does appear that there is an element nationally of disproportionality. I mean, it's quite clear that the vast majority of fixed penalty notices have been issued to white young men aged 18 to 25. But when you compare the relative numbers, I think there is a disproportionality issue at a national level, and that's something that's being actively discussed and explored at the moment. The number of stop and searches really prompted by knife crime has gone up significantly in Nottinghamshire. It's gone up over the past 12 months by almost 100%. I'm pleased to say that our success rate remains the highest in the country. And of course, we monitor disproportionality there. But the figures haven't increased. Again, a lot of the focus has been on white young men. I have to say, and Leslie, you'll perhaps want to comment on this, I've had quite a lot of earache from some powerful black women in Nottingham who want to protect their children and have been very positive, very forceful about stop and search and want to see it continue. So I'll just pass over to Craig about the welfare of officers, if that's okay.
Yeah, good question. We've got a national piece of advice that came a couple of weeks ago, and we've conducted across the whole organisation a risk assessment. So that's bespoke to any individual that falls into one of those vulnerable categories. And certainly based on the advice that came through, we've done that with certain members of staff over a particular age and from a particular background and with a number of underlying health conditions. So all that's been catered for and all the risk assessments have been done accordingly.
Thank you very much, Chief Constable. Any other questions from members at the moment?
Yes, if I could have one, Chair, please. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson.
It's a question about, we've not had a script for COVID-19, and I just wonder if all the work that's been undertook is being documented, because we never know when we're going to have to travel down this road again. And, documenting what's worked well and taking on board that's not worked so well for us as a county.
Commissioner, do you want to come in on that?
So that's an important point, and the National Police Chiefs Council have just commissioned a piece of work around lessons learned. I'm pleased to say that our Deputy Chief Constable, Rachel Barber, is involved in that work. I think it's right that we learn from what's happened over recent weeks. We're trying to have a discussion with the Home Office around a bit of a budget to do some work around this, but the work has already started, it's underway, and I very much take the point that you're making, and I think we'll produce an initial report very, very quickly.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other questions at all?
Chair.
Yes, is that Councillor Ellis?
Yeah. Thank you. I was looking at the performance report, Commissioner, and paragraph 3.3 talks about the missing persons team. Are you struggling to hear me, Paddy?
I am, but I'm on missing persons.
All right. Yeah. Hang on. I'll take my. Is that any better?
Yeah.
No. Is that better? Yeah. I was trying to use earphones and a microphone that's not working. Yeah. On the appendix that's on your website, it talks about the difference between the locating team and the safeguarding team. And I was reading the serious crime review serious case review from Waltham Forest about the 14-year-old boy who was murdered by being knocked off his moped and stabbed in London. You'll know the case. The report highlights the missing opportunity when he was found in Bournemouth to have what I think the report talks about, a moment to engage with him. And they didn't because there was confusion between the emergency duty to the social service emergency duty team and the police who could bring him back and which service ought to be responsible. So he was just ferried back without being intervened with. I understand the Mayor has introduced something now, and I just wondered, does not have arrangements to collect and intervene in that sort of safeguarding where it's on the margins of criminality and a safeguarding issue?
Well, this young man was well known in Nottingham before he moved to London, and I'll ask Craig to comment in a minute. There is a slight implied criticism of Nottinghamshire Police in the safeguarding report, but clearly the issue is using those change moments. And I'm confident that in most cases, you can't say in all cases that the police are in a position to intervene. But one of the things that I am confident about in Nottinghamshire is that the relationships between the police and the two local authorities, the city and the county council, are good and strong. And it's not an issue that I have a lot of concern about. But let's turn to Craig about the report itself.
Yeah, thanks, Paddy. I think the implied criticism was around a first contact with Nottinghamshire Police and the school. It shared information with the school, but it didn't share its intervention with the young person with YOS very early in the process. And I think that was where the criticism was implied. And that obviously would have been beneficial information to YOS when making a decision on a second transgression by the young person. And I think it was that point at which the author certainly identified a requirement for us to change our process, which we did during the serious case review. So the broader point that you ask about is the missing from home team. And I think it's really key to be able to just underline how effective that team is. So they deal with all those cases on a regular basis, share the information with both the locate team and the team who also feed into children's social care. And we have people embedded within YOS, and also we share the information on a very regular basis. And indeed, the top 5 or 10 are subject to probably the most intense scrutiny that you can imagine with regards to sole agencies. And just as an example of that, one of those 10 last year caused me to write to the chair of the Derbyshire Children's Safeguarding Board about one particular individual who had been placed in Nottinghamshire and was produced at the front door of Byron House just before Christmas.
Did you want to come back, Councillor Ellis, or has that
No, I think I'm
answered?
reassured. I think I'm reassured.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions to the Commissioner on his report? Well, if before, did I hear someone wanting to come in? No?
Yes.
Oh, is it Leslie Darby?
So is this a full report, Christine, that we can ask questions on now?
Yes, we're on item 9, which includes all the additional reports.
Yeah. Can I just ask a question that we may need further information on at a later date? But it's page 57, theme 4. It's the 4th bullet. It's related to police officer sickness rates increased by 8% in 1920. And I wondered what actions are being taken to manage attendance and anything that you can tell us about this. If not today, if you want a future meeting to.
Well, I'm sure, Leslie, that Craig will want to comment on this because it's something that's a regular source of discussion between him and I, and I'm well aware of the steps that the force are taking around this. But it's better. I was going to be rude and say it's better to hear it from the horse's mouth, but better get a professional view rather than mine.
Thank you.
Yes, with regards to attendance, that figure actually has come down quite significantly. And part of the reason that mainly the attendance figure was high was in relation to more of the stress and anxiety. And I think that has certainly come down over the time that we've been recruiting, and also some of the work that we've done around our well-being. And in particular, we have been a bit tighter on the ill health retirements over the last 12 months. We normally budget for an average number of 18, and I think in the last year, 12 people left us under that particular scheme. The other aspects of the well-being that we've really tried hard to do, and that's what's caused the number to come down of late, is the backup buddy, and in particular mental health awareness. And what we've seen in changing our supplier around our cognitive behavioural therapy specialism, that's really helped the officers and the staff. So that figure has come down of late, but with regards to where we are today, what I can say is through COVID, we've had one of the highest levels of attendance that we've had in the last couple of years.
Did you want to come back, Leslie?
No, thanks. Perhaps you can give us some updated figures for the future meeting. That would be useful. Thank you.
I'll do that for you.
Thank you. And I think we've got Councillor Inglis.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to sort of discuss the Reacher, which is having great success. Paddy, you sort of promised early in previous meetings that everything will be in place by the end of the year. The report mentioned something about it might be delayed a little bit, but then I was pleased to hear that you're saying it's going to be in place by October, November this year for all neighbourhoods. Can you just confirm that?
Yes, I can confirm that it started in the Bestwood area. It's been extended into Gedling. There's an inspector who's been working on this, who I think you've met, and plans are in hand for every neighbourhood inspector, including the Rushcliffe neighbourhood inspector, to have resources available in the autumn. The precise date is yet to be determined. We've talked about September, October, November. The sergeants have been selected and nominated. The teams have come together. They won't start off as full teams to begin with, but there'll be plenty of resource there that during the rest of this financial year will meet our needs. I said earlier on that we intend to recruit an extra 150 officers in the current financial year. 2/3 of them, at least 2/3 of them, will be frontline neighbourhood officers. The Operation Uplift and conversely, the lockdown has given us the opportunity to get more visible, uniformed officers on the streets. And you'll be delighted to know that I was in West Park in West Bridgford only yesterday. A lot of people out there. I know the council have had some concerns about it, but there was a very clear, visible police presence at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's good. Yeah, well, that's very pleasing, Paddy. I say they're doing excellent work. The media cover they're getting is excellent, especially with all the drug things and everything. So that is really pleasing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments from colleagues? If not, Councillor Woodings, did you want to come in with something?
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on the performance of 999, which has been excellent, with a really low abandon rate of 999 and 101 calls as well. I think the point of concern in the performance report is that there's been an increase in calls made to 999, year-on-year increase in calls to 999. And I just wondered if you're doing any analysis of that, Commissioner, in order to understand what's behind the, presumably there's a national analysis because it's a national picture as well. But that's got to be a concern as far as the resourcing of the 9 service going forward. And I just wondered as well, I mean, I've tried to report stuff online before because I know we were looking to, a lot of organisations are looking to move reports to, or less urgent reports, to digital reporting. And I found the online service really clunky and lots of different windows and refreshes to have to go through in order to report that. And I just, I know as well about this time last year, we were discussing the introduction of a queuing service that, for example, for 101, that would say you are 7th in the queue and you'll have approximately X minutes to wait.
Yeah.
Just wondered if you're looking at that for future service improvements as far as releasing the demand on 101 to improve the online reporting system, or improving the waiting time for 101s.
So on 999 calls, we're one of the best performing forces in the country, and we've got statistics available, and we can certainly share it with the panel. On 101, we've had difficulty in the past, but the number of abandoned calls has fallen very significantly, and we're shifting, and I'm not quite sure, but I'll find out for you, to a new digital platform. You don't make policy by way of personal experience, but I've had the pleasure of calling 101 twice in the last month. I have to say, on both occasions, one was at the embankment in Nottingham, and the police, I got through straight away, and the police were in attendance in 3 or 4 minutes. And the other was at David the Netherfield Lagoons just last week. And again, the response was quick and effective. But I will get a little paper written that will circulate to the panel.
Thank you. Paddy, I'm glad you get a quick response. If I was the police and the Commissioner rang, I'd jump to it too.
And they say, yes, sir, they say.
I think it's time probably to intervene at that point and just ask if there are any other questions for the Commissioner on his report.
Just one more from myself, please, Councillor Inglis.
Yes, Councillor Inglis.
Just following on from Councillor Woodings with the 39 system, the 101 system. I did raise a question a while ago in another meeting. It still seems that it's not prioritised to the urgency when you call in. It's still item 6 or 7 to report an incident. So you have to wait 1 or 2 minutes going through all the different options of lost property, speak to someone in custody, before you can actually report an incident, which I think ought to be the #1 priority, really.
Well, we'll get the figures out for you, and what it will show is a dramatic improvement in 101. I accept that once you get through on the 101 numbers, there are a number of filtering questions before you get into it. But they only last for a matter of seconds. It's not a long delay. There has been an issue in Rushcliffe around the Leicestershire-Nottinghamshire border that we've been having a close look at.
Yes, well, it's 31 seconds when I phoned in recently to report an incident. You know, I think it was item 6. You had to wait through every option before you get to report an incident. I'd like to see that as number 1.
Okay.
Commissioner, does the analysis show you eventually how many people choose whichever option, taking Councillor Inglis's point that perhaps wanting to report an incident should be number 1, but perhaps the breakdown of the stats would tell you what people are mostly calling for?
So, Christine, we've got a lot of information on this. Let me get it together and write a note to the panel after the meeting.
Excellent suggestion. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions to the Commissioner? If not, before moving on this recommendation, may I just add my own comment? And that's really through you, Commissioner, to the Chief Constable. I think for a county the size of Nottinghamshire, with all its different challenges, to have only issued 153 fixed penalties during this lockdown period is to be commended. I know at the beginning of this, the Chief Constable was very keen to point out that his strategy was to be very gentle with people, to inform, to tell, to coax people into taking the appropriate action. And I think that's to be commended.
And Christine, I'm grateful for your comments, and we'll feed that back across the force because there's a regular daily communication to officers and staff around COVID, and a bit of praise from you would go a long way. So thank you.
Oh, I didn't think I carried that. I didn't think I carried that much influence, but thank you anyway.
You carry a lot of influence with me, Christine.
Can the recommendations be agreed? And if so, before just agreeing to that, can I just check whether there are any votes against or any abstentions that people would wish to record? If not, I'll take silence as thank you very much. And can we move then to the final item? And just to say, if people are getting slightly concerned because we thought we were going to move to our next meeting by 3:15, we recognise that it's going to be delayed by about 10 or 15 minutes. And I think people have been notified. Keith, is that correct? So if anyone's anxious about the time frame, that's the position we're in at the moment. It takes a little longer to do these sessions working through the video system. So item 10 in your bundle is the Police and Crime Delivery Plan Theme 3, Tackling Crime and Antisocial Behaviour. So prior to handing over to the Commissioner to introduce this item, could I formally move that the recommendations, which I understand the Vice Chair will second?
Second them.
Can you? Perhaps David didn't hear me.
So
oh, just a second. Oh, right. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Can I hand over to the Commissioner for item 10, please?
So Christine, given the passage of time, I think the sensible thing is for me just to take any questions from members of the panel. The report's fairly short and fairly straightforward.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll see if there's any questions and also in the appendices that show the performance against targets. As you say, it was a point in time that's probably been slightly overtaken with events, I suspect. Any questions to the Commissioner on item 10 of the agenda? No? In that case then, can the recommendations please be agreed? And can I just check whether there are any votes against or any abstentions? Can I thank you all for joining the meeting this afternoon? Well, there'll be a short break before we come back and do our confirmatory hearing. Thank you very much, everyone. And there'll be a short recess. And we'll...
Could I just underline to everybody, you just need to end this call and then you go into the next invite because it's set up as 2 separate meetings. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Keith, for that point. Thank you. And we'll be back shortly.
Thank you.